Yes, Himati, you want to give us a summary, please?
Hare Krishna. My recollection from last session was that we started, I believe, chapter 4. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm a little confused. And my understanding was, talking about the Gita and the disciplic succession. How was it initially? It was introduced from the sun god down to the disciplic succession, primarily given to the kings at that time to act as role models, to passing down instructions through their own behaviors. We also, I think, spoke about Krishna being superhuman, with his ability to remember previous births. Unlike us humans, we are unable to do so. And also, speaking about the different versions of the Bhagavad Gita, however, I think ours is the most purest form based on the fact that it is, gone through the disciplic succession, from the sun god to the kings, Krishna himself passed down to Arjuna.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we also talked about the qualification. Krishna says, Bhaktos ime sakhaji, that you're my friend and you're my devotee. That only because of that reason I'm revealing myself to you. So a finite can only understand the infinite when the infinite voluntarily reveals himself. And that revelation only happens through true bhakti. Yes. So, and then Arjun was mentioning, he was in turn that, I'm your contemporary, both are the same age group. How could you spoken it to sun god? And Krishna reveals, as you were saying, that I've been around forever. I've been giving this knowledge to kings. So yes, thank you. That was a good quick summary. So I think we did up to we started verse 7. I think we should go over that verse again. So 7 to 10, this is a very important section of Bhagavad Gita. It teaches us, why does Krishna come here? And what is his true purpose of coming here? And then how can we understand that? There's a very famous verse which Prabhupada used to quote very often. That's the 9th verse of this chapter. Janma karma chimi divyam evam yoveti tattvataha tyaktu deha punar janma naiti mameti so Arjun. That whoever understands my true nature, my janma and karma, my birth and my activities, is liberated. And there is a lot to unpack in that one verse. So these four or five verses that we're going to do today are very important for us. So let's get going on that. Let me go to the slides. I thought we had something. The summary we did. Connection we did. We talked about an acronym. So we are still in the first one, the position of Krishna. What is that transcendental knowledge? Okay. We did up to 4. We talked about this life cycle of Krishna, of Brahma, this whole creation. And yes, so we were on 7. Krishna talks 7 and 8. Krishna talks about his activities, and 9 is the result of understanding Krishna's activities. Okay, so let's get back to the verse. So we're doing, this is 7th verse. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. Whenever and wherever there's a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of religion, at that time I descend myself. So whenever there is a decline, at the time Krishna descends himself. So Prabhupada starts by elaborating upon the word Srijami, the purport. Prabhupada says that Srijami cannot be used in a sense of creation, because there is no creation for Lord's form of body. Therefore, Srijami means that the Lord manifests himself as he is. So Krishna is manifesting himself as he is. So, so Krishna is telling his external reasons for coming in this verse. So what does the word dharma mean? Right? He's saying yada yada hi dharmasya. He's telling us, and abhithanam adharmasya. So Krishna is using the word dharma here. So what does the word dharma mean? The word dharma, it comes from the root word dhru, which means dharate, that which holds or sustains the existence of something. That means that's the dharma, meaning of dharma. So what is it that exists? What is it that sustains the existence of something? Is can be appropriately called dharma. For example, this Prabhupada gave this example that sweetness is the dharma of a sugar. So if you remove the sweetness part out of sugar, it's not going to be sugar anymore. Similarly, we as human beings, we as jiva, tiny jivas, seva is our dharma. We are servants. That's our dharma. We are all designed for service. Okay? If we don't choose to serve Krishna, then by default we will be choosing some illusory masters in this world. And we all are servants. Nobody in this entire creation cannot say that I'm not a servant. A businessman is a servant to his customers. I have a 9-to-5 job. I'm serving the company. They pay me in return for that. So that's always going on. But we are always serving somebody or the other. Right. So whether we are a Hindu, a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, whoever we may be, our dharma does not change. The dharma of being a servant. Right? So dharma, very inappropriately, is translated into religion in the English language. Religion means a particular faith. It's a faith, more of a faith. So the faith can change, but the dharma cannot change for us. Right? So to love and serve, we cannot change that. We're always looking for love. Right? So love and service, that's a basic dharma. We cannot change that. And when we use that love in this material world, we realize that it's very temporary. It never gets fulfilled. It never gets satiated. The concept of love is correct, but then we are placing it in the wrong space. So it's common across species. Even if we go into other species, our dharma does not change. We continue to live our dharma. So dharma means that there are some principles or laws governing this universe. That's another way of putting dharma as. So that's what meaning dharma is. But that's something that I wanted to clear out. That dharma doesn't mean religion. It's just dharma is the constitutional position of the living entity. Right. So in this world, broadly, people can be categorized as suras and asuras. So sura means who are law abiding, and asuras are those who are law breaking. Okay. And when the domination of asuras increases in the society, Krishna comes. And Prabhupada, as I was saying, Prabhupada is explaining Srijami is not birth, but it's appearance. Just like sunset, right? Sunset appears in our vision and it disappears in our vision. It does not die. It does not die. So yada yada hi dharmasya. Yada means whenever and wherever. And glani means decline. But in the previous verse that we had done, the verse number 6, yeah, so he says that I appear in my transcendental form, right? So he can remember everything because he is transcendental. Now he tells why he appears, right? It was earlier was how he appears, last verse. So we talked about the meaning of dharma here, okay? Another way of looking at dharma, and I just wanted to elaborate on this word dharma. It's very important that we fully understand the concept behind dharma. Dharma can be on 3 levels. So as I said, our dharma is love and service to Krishna. That is our dharma. The true dharma of the living entity is that. That's our spiritual dharma. Then we talked about material dharma. We have talked about the varnashrama system. How do we live our lives that is conducive for our spiritual growth and does not create chaos in the society? The varnashrama system, we have Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. That's the varna, and then we have the ashrams, Brahmachari, Grasta, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa. So when we live according to that, that's another. That's not our true dharma, but that's a dharma that we are using to live in this world. And then what most of us are doing is more of a transitional dharma that we are living, that we are trying to purify ourselves, but gradually. So that's what we all are doing here. That helps us to be in harmony with this world. So these are the ways to look at dharma. So we are in this transitionary state, right? So so here Krishna is not referring to spiritual dharma of love of Krishna. In this, dharma refers to the social arrangement by which people practice the dharma, the varnashrama system, and all that system. So Krishna is mentioning that whenever that imbalance happens in the society, I come. Yeah. So then let's look at the purport. Prabhupada had some things he had said. Okay. Although the Lord appears on schedule, namely at the end of the Dwapar Yuga of the 28th millennium of the 7th Manu, in one day of Brahma, he has no obligation to adhere to such rules and regulations because he is completely free to act in many ways at his will. Okay, so this is an important concept here. So let's just look at this. Was it this? No. This one, right? We have this slide. So just wanted to refer back to that slide. That one day of Brahma, what does it include? So this is this kalpa right here. This is one day of Brahma. Let's start with the Divya Yuga. Let's start with the easier part. Divya Yuga is a combination of the 4 yugas: Satya, Treta, Dwapar, and Kali Yuga. So 4 yugas make Divya Yuga, and 71 such Divya Yugas make one mantra. That is one Manu takes care of that one mantra. So he's presiding deity of 71 Divya Yugas, and 14 such mantras make one day of Brahma. So that's total of 4.32 billion years. So that's one day of Brahma. Out of those 4.32 billion years, Krishna comes in the 7th manvantara, which we are in right now, and he comes in this. Let me see what Prabhupada is saying here. 28th millennium of the 7th Manu. Okay. So he comes in the 28th Divya Yuga. End of Dwapar Yuga of the 28th Divya Yuga of the 7th Manu. So that's when Krishna comes to this world. So we all are extremely lucky that we are living in the same Divya Yuga when Krishna personally comes on this planet. He makes his scheduled visit here. Right? He makes his scheduled visit here on this world, in this world. So he was just here 5,000 years ago, 5,182 years approximately. So he was just here. Okay. So that's what Prabhupada is saying. But he has no obligation to adhere to such rules and regulations because he is completely free to act in many ways at his will. You cannot ask Krishna to, be perfect in his words. You said you come this time, so you should be at this time. No, Krishna is not bound by the rules and regulations of this world, but he just comes at this time. That's something that has been specified. But he's not. He doesn't have to stick to this rule. Prabhupada is explaining to us that. Okay, then Prabhupada is saying, therefore, each and every avatar or incarnation of the Lord has a particular mission, and they are all described in the revealed scriptures. No one should be accepted as an avatar unless he is referred to by scriptures. It is not a fact that the Lord appears only on an Indian soil. He can manifest himself anywhere and everywhere, whenever he desires to appear. Prabhupada is bringing out the concept of avatars because, somebody can ask us this, that, okay, Krishna is coming, so he's also an avatar. But that's not the way to look at it. So Krishna is not an avatar, he's an avatari. So avatar means that which manifests, and avatari is one through who's the source of that manifestation, source of that avatar. So Krishna is not an avatar, he's an avatari of all the avatars. Right? In Bhagavatam, the first canto, 3rd chapter, there's a mention of all the avatars. Vaman, Matsya, Hamsa, so on and so forth. And after all of those have been explained, Sukdev Goswami says, Ete Chamsha Kalha Pumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridyanti Yuge Yuge. That Ete Chamsha Kalha Pumsha. That whatever all the other parts which I have told you, they're your parts and parts. Cha Amsha, your Amshas. Ete Chamsha Kalha Pumsha. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. You are Supreme God yourself. All the other incarnations are your part and parcel. So, all of those which come, they have a particular mission. Prabhupada is giving an example over here of Buddha, Lord Buddha. He gives an example of Lord Buddha in this purport. Even though we consider Lord Buddha as atheist, but he is coming with a purpose here. Okay. He's coming with a purpose because materialism was so rampant at that time, people were misusing the Vedas. So Lord Buddha had to just say, forget the Vedas. Just at least try to be a normal human being first. So that's what Prabhupada is highlighting here, that each and every one of those incarnations has a purpose. But then he gives an essence saying that the whole purpose of the mission of incarnations is to arouse Krishna consciousness everywhere. Any incarnation that comes into this world has a specific purpose to increase our dedication for Krishna consciousness, to increase our interest, to arouse our interest in Krishna consciousness, right? So that is the only purpose for which all these, that is the quintessential purpose for which all the incarnations come. They externally might be doing other jobs. Hiranyakashipu comes, sorry, not him. Narsimhadev comes, kills Hiranyakashipu. Lord Ram comes, kills Ravana. Vaman Dev comes and takes over the land from Bali Maharaj. Then Matsya comes and it protects the during the dissolution time. Matsya comes, and all of these, they have some external purpose, but the quintessential purpose is to arouse our Krishna consciousness everywhere. And then Prabhupada goes on to say, such consciousness is manifest and non-manifest only under different circumstances. So the consciousness is always there in my heart. It just manifests sometimes and it doesn't manifest sometimes. So as Mahaprabhu has told us, it's Cheto Darpana Marjana. It's cleaning the mirror. The mirror is there. I can see my reflection in it, but it's dirty right now. So when I clean it, my reflection just manifests in it. It's not that my reflection is generated at that time. So that's the essence here of this verse. Okay, let's go to the verse 8, which is the continuation of Krishna's purpose. Why is he coming? Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya chadushkatam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to establish the principles of religion, I myself appear, millennium after millennium. So, Paritranaya means deliver from difficulty. Deliver whom? The law-abiding citizens. Right? To annihilate those criminals who are not abiding by So to establish a principle of religion, Krishna comes. So this world, as it's called, Prabhupada has said that this world is like a jail to us. When the jail is taken over by asuras, by people who are not abiding by the laws, by the governing principles of this universe, then Krishna comes to fix it. Then somebody can ask us that, okay, I understand Krishna is saying that's his purpose. So why isn't he coming now? Okay? There are so many asuras around here. So one thing is that today's asuras are very insignificant in comparison to the asuras in the past. Hiranyakashipu, like asuras like Hiranyakashipu and Ravan, right? So Krishna can, he doesn't need to come for these petty ant-like asuras which are existing right now. And the main reason, as Prabhupada was mentioning in the last verse, Krishna comes to display his leelas, to arouse Krishna consciousness, to appease his devotees, to give them that nectar of Krishna's leela, so that they can become so happy that they become satisfied. That's the true purpose. So, but then whenever in these cases, whenever the devotees are in trouble, Krishna comes. Like Narsingh Dev and Lord Ram came. All these, they come when devotees are in trouble. And so somebody can again ask you that, is it partiality that Krishna comes only when his devotees are in trouble? He doesn't come in other ways. No, it's not partiality. It's just, it's a Yogakshemam Vahamyam. Krishna says this in the 7th chapter. Yogakshemam Vahamyam. Right? That I come to, so I just reciprocate as to whatever is given to me. In the 9th chapter, Krishna says, 29th verse, that Sammoham Sarva Bhuteshu Name Dvesho Asti Na Priya Ye Bhajanti Tu Mam Bhaktya Maitateshu Chapiham. He's saying that I am neutral to everybody. Right? Sammoham Sarva Bhuteshu. Sammoham, it's the same. I'm same for all the Bhute, all living entities. Name Dvesho Asti Na Priya. Neither I am envious of anybody, nor I am deeply in love with anybody. Then Name Dvesho Asti Na Priya Ye Bhajanti Tu Mam Bhaktya Maitateshu Chapiham. But then when you approach me out of love, then I become your close friend. Just like when rain falls on every piece of land, it falls in the ocean, it falls on a barren land, it falls on a fertile land. But the land that's fertile is the only one on which crops can grow. So if my heart is not being tilled properly, it's not fertile enough, Krishna's manifestation will not have any effect on it. When Krishna came to the assembly of the Kurus, and he requested Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra to give just enough land so that they can rule just 5 villages. Right? Everybody could, many of their people who were present there, they knew that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then, even though Duryodhana had been told so many times, he just couldn't realize it. He was so ignorant. He was so ignorant that he just thought, oh, he's just a mystic. Catch hold of him. And then Krishna had to show his universal form to him. Not to Arjuna, sorry, Duryodhana. And but so that's the it's not that Krishna is partial to devotees, it's just that people they don't appreciate or accept that this is Krishna. They're just so ignorant, right? And there's this story I've heard, once Akbar read this verse that about Yogakshema Mahamyam, verse I was mentioning, that Krishna, 9th verse I just mentioned. He came across those and he said, he became doubtful and he said that, why does Krishna only come to protect why does Krishna have to come to protect his devotees? Well, he can arrange his subordinates, his even a living entity, he can make him very strong and get it done. He has so many agents. Why does Krishna come? And Birbal, being the smart person that he was, he said, okay, King, I'll answer this question in due course of time. Okay. So one day Akbar, with his young son and some of his other entourage and other ministers and so forth, and with Birbal, he was going in a boat ride. He was in a boat ride. When the boat reached the middle of the lake, what did Birbal do was he pushed Akbar's son into the lake. And Akbar just was flabbergasted. He was like, oh my God, what has happened? And he immediately jumped into water. And when he got back, he was angry very angry with Birbal. And he looked at Birbal, why did you do that? What was going on in your mind? And he was very angry. And Birbal said, that's the answer to your question. That even though you had a full entourage running with you, you have your soldiers, you had your ministers, but you jumped to protect your own son. You didn't wait for others to jump in and protect your son. You didn't just sit back and say, oh, my servants are going to do that. So that is why Krishna comes to protect his devotees, because he's so much in love with them. And the devotees also reciprocate, just like a son reciprocates to his father. So that's the way of understanding that why Krishna has to come to protect his devotees. And devotees also, it's a two-way street. Devotees also have this full confidence that Krishna will protect them. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in one of his songs, I think it's the first song of the Sharnagati book. He says that Dainya Atma Nivedana Goptritve Varan Avashya Rakshibe Krishna Vishwasha Palan. Avashya Rakshibe Krishna Vishwasha Palan. That a devotee, Avashya Rakshibe Krishna. That a devotee is 100% sure that Krishna will protect him. Right? Recently, that Arjun, when Krishna had made this vow that tomorrow I'm going to kill Arjun or I'm going to die, and the whole party night before, they were all engaged in making plans for the next day, and Arjun was sleeping peacefully. So Krishna goes to him and asks him, what are you doing? Aren't you afraid? Or aren't you kind of scared that Bhishma has taken this vow? He said, why should I be scared? You're protecting me. So I've left all to you. Right? So that's the kind of a Avashya Rakshibe Krishna that a devotee has. Right? And Krishna has not taken the right away from any living entity to love him. Krishna showers his love in the same amount to every single living entity, right? But then some people reciprocate, some people turn away from it, some people get confused, so on and so forth, depending on their interaction with this material nature. Right? So Krishna's laws of nature, his empowered empowered manifestations can take care of the asuras, but Krishna comes for his devotees. That's something to always remember, that Krishna comes for his devotees. Killing asuras is not a big deal for Krishna. Right? When Krishna was a child, when he was in Vrindavan, Kamsa would send all these demons, right? Trinavarta, then Abhīṣṭa-dohaṁ, so many of those demons came. But the way, how was Krishna looking at them? Like as if his uncle is sending some toys to the nephew. And they would come, Krishna would fight, and all his friends would have fun. And sometimes Krishna would show off that, oh, see, I killed this demon. And so he was just having fun. It was not as if those demons had any power against Krishna. He took them as toys coming from his uncle Kamsa. So that's why Krishna comes, not to annihilate these demons. Anybody can do that, but Krishna comes out of love of his devotees. Right? And dharma samsthapanarthaya is what the discussion we are having. Dharma samsthapanarthaya. Whenever in our life Krishna manifests himself, he can manifest this in many ways, right? He manifests either through motivation, or motivation to practice bhakti. He can come by giving us the strength to weather the ebbs and flows that are coming in our life. All that is Krishna performing dharma samsthapanarthaya in my life. That's what Krishna is doing. Right? So that's the way Krishna works. So if you want to understand Krishna, how he's doing dharma samsthapanarthaya in your life, this is a way of looking at it, trying to just evaluate your life. And this happens in our happens in our lives all the time. Sometimes we feel that, oh my God, something happened. Is this Krishna? Was this Krishna that he was doing it? Yes, probably that was Krishna, right? So, so when the devotee is making every endeavor to surrender to Krishna, then he notices that Krishna is reciprocating by giving more and more facilities, by giving us more and more strength, and then it becomes a very real relationship with Krishna. Then you can, oh, was this Krishna? And then you go, oh, yeah, that was definitely Krishna who played a role in my life. So that's the way a devotee works. That Krishna keeps coming and presenting Dharma Samsthapanarthaya. Krishna keeps doing that. Dharma Samsthapanarthaya, one after the other. Right. Once somebody asked Prabhupada that, why did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu not establish Krishna consciousness across the world himself? And he himself said, Prithvi te ache nagaradigram sarvatra prachar hoibe morana. So when he's saying that, why did he do it himself? So as Srila Prabhupada, he bowed down his head and very humbly said, he wanted me to take credit. That's what Prabhupada said. And that's what Krishna does. He lets his devotees take it. So it's just all his love that's being manifested here. All these things are secondary. That, oh my God, their asuras are gaining power. All that is not very important. It's just that Krishna wants to love his devotees, want to reciprocate with them. That's where he comes from. Right? Similarly, in Ramayana, Hanuman could fly over the ocean, but Lord Ram had to make a bridge. Isn't that ironic? Right? But just to set an example, Lord sometimes acts as mortal. He acts as mortal. Right? So we should always see these as examples of Lord's expressing himself in different ways for his devotees to have build faith in him. So we should pay heed to the intervention that Krishna makes in our lives by being focused, by being more attentive in our lives. Then we come to the Pratraya Sadhana Vinashaya Dharma Samsthapanarthaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. So Krishna is coming again and again. Right? Here. So Paritranaya, so what the word Paritranaya, right? This word here, right here. So the word Paritranaya means it's a Paritranaya. So deliver, Paritranaya. So that means to deliver. It means to delivering. When you say Manastrayate is mantra, so Pranatrayate is Paritranaya. So the prana means that it comes to deliver our prana. So it comes to help us out. He comes to help the devotees out. Right? So that's another way of looking at it. Prabhupada in this purport starts by mentioning who a sadhu is. All these are secondary purposes, incidental results, killing of demons and so forth. But the primary purpose is to satisfy the devotees. And then in this somewhere, yes, so the Lord especially descends to appease his unalloyed devotees. Okay, so Prabhupada is talking about avatars in here. The avatar or incarnation of Godhead descends from the kingdom of God for material manifestation. And the particular form of the personality of Godhead, who so descends, is called an incarnation or avatar. Such incarnations are situated in the spiritual world, the kingdom of God. When they descend to the material creation, they assume the name avatar. And then Prabhupada goes on to give that there are 6 avatars. But Lord Krishna is the primeval Lord, the fountainhead of all avatars. So he's the primeval head of all the avatars. And these avatars, let me go to the slides. I think I put some there. Okay, yes. So Prabhupada talks about these 6 kind of avatars in there. So I just want to give a brief overview. Of what these avatars are. First is Purusha avatars. Okay, so Purusha is the 3 Vishnus. They look after this material nature and they interact with nature. So, so Purusha, there are three avatars. So Karnodakshay Vishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and Kshirodakshay Vishnu. Okay. So the word Vishnu, if you break it down from a Sanskrit etymology, Vishate means to enter, and Na means completely. So one who enters and pervades everything in this creation completely is Vishnu. That's the meaning of the word Vishnu. Okay. So these Purusha avatars, are like God, in English terminology. When they say in English terminology the word God, and that's a concept that we'll talk a bit about also today, that the English God terminology means somebody who's the generator of this creation, who's the maintainer, and then the destroyer. The spiritual creation never undergoes destruction. It's sanatana. But when we say God, it is this, the Karnodakshay Vishnu, from whose pores many universes come out. Okay? Many Brahmandas come out. Many universes come out from the pores of Karnodakshay Vishnu. And then each of those universes has a Garbhodakshay Vishnu, who's the soul of that universe in one sense. Okay? So then he's the one who goes and lies on the ocean, and from his navel comes out a lotus flower on which Brahma is born. Okay, so that's and then the third one is Kshirodakshay Vishnu. Kshirodakshay Vishnu is the one who is manifesting from Garbhodakshay, and he's the one who's living in each and every one of our hearts. Right? 13.23, Krishna tells us, Upadrashta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara. So that's the Paramatma he's talking about sitting in our heart. He's Upadrashta. He's the overseer and the permitter. All our desires are approved or rejected by the Paramatma sitting in our heart. So that's the Purusha avatars, the three of them. Then comes the Guna avatars. So the Guna avatars, there are three gunas: Sattva, Tamas, Rajas. Okay, and they all three have their presiding deities, which is Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. Okay, that's it. Those three of them. So, and then comes the Leela avatars. So the Leela avatars, where, as the name by itself says, that Lord comes in different ways to do a Leela. He's just coming to do a particular activity, right? So they come to perform a particular pastime. That's it. So Krishna, like Buddha came. He taught a kind of a dharma that just give up Vedas, live like a human being at least first. And Lord Ram came. He was the Maryada Purushottam Ram. He came to establish Maryada. So they have a particular pastime. So those are Leela avatars, and Kurma, Matsya, name some of them here. So they have a particular pastime, and then they go away. So that's the Leela avatars. Okay. Then come Satyavesh avatars. Satyavesh avatar is a living entity empowered by Supreme Lord. So he's a living entity who's been given this power to act in a specific way in this material world. So that's the Saptavesh avatar. Okay. And Prabhupada was Saptavesh avatar. He was a living entity, but he's been empowered to do something, to establish religion, this world. And he did it successfully. Now, in a short period of 12 years, what Prabhupada did is unimaginable. So that is why it's called, so Saptavesh avatar is an empowered person, is an empowered being, empowered living entity. Then comes Manvantara avatars. Okay, so each avatar that comes in age of each Manu. So I showed you this slide here. One Manvantara is 71 Divya Yugas. Each Divya Yuga is the 4 Yugas. 71 of such Divya Yugas. One Manu takes care of that. So in each day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus that come. Okay. So you don't have to memorize or remember all this information. I'm just giving it in case. you need it, you want to, if it interests you. So each Manu comes that. So that's the, so each life in each Manu's lifespan, the Lord comes as an avatar to establish Dharma in each of those Manu's lives. Okay. So as I said, we are in the 7th Manu, Vaivasvata, 28th Divya Yuga. Okay. Dwapar Yuga, Krishna appears. He had a scheduled visit there. Okay. And then last is Yuga avatars. So Yuga means each of those 4 yugas, Divya yugas, right? So Satya, Treta, Dwapar, and Kali, 4 of them. So there's a cycle that keeps on. For this particular Divya Yuga that we are living in Satya Yuga, Lord Ram came. In Treta Yuga, Lord Narsimha came. In the Dwapar Yuga, Krishna came. In Kali Yuga, Mahaprabhu came. Okay. So Yuga avatar, he comes to establish the Dharma, right? And Mahaprabhu, what did he do? He established chanting as the Dharma for us. Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Yagir Sankirtana Pere Yajanti Hi Sumedasha. This comes in the 11th canto, 5th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a verse which tells us that in Kali Yuga, Krishna, even though he's Krishna, but he's not dark complexion. He's Krishna Varnam Tvisha Akrishnam. He's not blackish in color. So although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. And he comes Sango Pangastra Parshadam. Parshad means somebody who's your associate. Right? So he comes with all his associates, servants, weapons, and so on and so forth. And what does he do? Yagir Sankirtana Praye. That in this life, in this yuga, he comes and spreads Sankirtan. And those people who are Sumedasha, who are intelligent, who pick it up. That means all of you. You are Sumedasha. So that's the those are the yuga avatars that come each time. So that's
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
yes, ma'am.
Prabhuji, I wanted a clarification on how do we differentiate between manifestation, incarnation, and expansion?
Manifestation, incarnation, and expansion.
Yeah,
so
because
so manifestation, incarnation, expansion. I'm not sure how you have to differentiate between all those 3 words. They sound similar to me.
I don't know if it's used interchangeably, different meaning, because manifestation, I remember I was hearing one of the lectures of Prabhupada, like, because Krishna expands himself as first expansion is Baldev, right? And from Baldev comes Sankarshan, Pradumna. So that is different, right? Probably that's an expansion, right? Like from left comes Balrama, Baldev, from right is Radharani. So that's an expansion, right? Incarnation is the incarnation which we are talking about, like Matsya Avatar, Vamna Avatar, Kurma Avatar, all these avatars. And I'm not sure about manifestation.
I'm not sure if you can make that differentiation, to be frank with you, because if you see, technically all these are manifestation of Krishna, right? Kurma, Matsya, Vaman, they're coming with a specific purpose, but they are Krishna's amshas. They are part and parcel of Krishna. So now, will you call that a manifestation or an incarnation? They both have been empowered by Krishna. And for example, when I think of it, the differentiation you can make is between Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva, for example. All these are Vishnu Tattvas. The Purusha avatars are Vishnu Tattvas, and all these Leela avatars, they are Vishnu Tattvas. Saktavish avatars can be Jiva Tattva. Jiva means living entity, which is eternally different from Krishna. So for example, Prabhupada, he's a Jiva, he's a living entity like us, but then he's been empowered by Krishna. So that is one place where you can make a differentiation. I don't think you can make a differentiation on the basis of manifestation, incarnation, and expansion. Because Krishna is manifesting himself, he is expanding, right? That all these Balram is coming from him, all these all the Vishnus are coming from him. So he is expanding. So he is expanding as well as he's manifesting himself. His energy is manifesting in all of them. So personally, I don't think you can differentiate in those words. That's my understanding of it.
Thank you. Prabhu.
Does that make sense? Okay.
I guess I'm just thinking. Yes, Prabhu, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's there because Prabhupada uses these words at different places, but just for the sake of simplicity, we have to understand that manifestation is no different than in incarnations, right? Incarnation means, for example, he's incarnating. Let's look at Prabhupada's purport in here where he uses the word. See, so he's saying the Lord says that he incarnates himself in every millennium. So this indicates that he incarnates also in the age of Kali. So now the word incarnation means that he's coming in every single age also, which is actually coming to this material world. But even coming to this planet Earth, there are so many other earlier levels. Brahma is there, from Brahma, Vishnus are there. So when Krishna is actually, even Lord Chaitanya himself is a part of Krishna, he's Krishna himself. And that also is being called as incarnation by Prabhupada, right? So those words, as long as we understand that Krishna is the fountainhead of all those avatars, I think that's itself is a good, uncomplicated understanding to have. But if you try to get into those details, what does manifestation mean? What does incarnation mean? We don't want to differentiate that. That's okay. We are not jnana yogis to go into that kind of technicalities. And the way I'm looking at it, there is no technicality. There's no differentiation in there. They all seem to be kind of pointing towards the same person or same person's energy. So just we don't have to go into those technicalities to understand those.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. Yes. So these are the 6 things that Prabhupada is explaining in the purport. He talks about avatars. And if there is any interest, somebody wants to go deeper into the avatars, Rupa Goswami has written the Bhakti-Sastri. He goes into great detail. I think it's 600 or even actually more than that, probably 1,000 verses in that book, which talks of these avatars, which establishes Krishna's position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the book.
Which book is that, Prabhuji? Sorry, your voice got cut when you said the name of the book.
Laghu Bhagavatamrita.
Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Okay, thank you.
But Prabhupada has also, I tell you the names of these books. My suggestion, and you're free to reject it or accept it, is Prabhupada told us that first assimilate what I have given in my books, then go to other books. Right? That is the way we should all approach Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada was never against reading other Goswamis or other Acharyas' books. He was never against that. He wanted his disciples to do it. His disciples have translated many of these Acharyas' books, Goswami's books, and some very extremely esoteric literature. We're talking about such topics as, the relationship between Radha and Krishna, Radha and Krishna and the gopis, which can be a bit of a distraction for us. So first we should assimilate what Prabhupada has given us in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita to be very clear. And once we have some understanding of those, then we should go to the other books. Just wanted to put that out in the air. So, okay, so that was the verse number 8. Let's see, was there anything? So let's now coming to the verse number 9. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yuveti tatvatah taktva deham punar janma naiti mameti so Arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode. So a very important word that is being used here is tatvatah. So it means knowing Krishna actually, not sentimentally, actually. And mameti means will come back to you. So Krishna is giving us a clue how we can attain transcendental nature. And as it commonly is said, but we become what we associate with. if we associate our consciousness in trying to understand Krishna's appearance and activities, then our consciousness becomes transcendental. Okay? Then we become, we understand Krishna. So the important thing to understand here is that we should love God and not just the concept of God. That's the difference between what, Bhakti Yoga being in Krishna consciousness versus other traditions. Because the other traditions, they talk of God, but Krishna consciousness talks of Tattva. It talks of the absolute truth. And that's what Prabhupada gives in the first one understand the truth of appearance. Okay, no, not this one. The introduction of Srimad Bhagavatam. The first line, Prabhupada differentiates between what does it mean, Tattva. Let me just pull that up and see. I can read it to you. See if I can. The first sentence of Srimad Bhagavatam, of the introduction of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the first sentence of Srimad Bhagavatam, the introduction is, the conception of God and the conception of absolute truth are not on the same level. The Srimad Bhagavatam hits on the target of absolute truth. The conception of God indicates the controller, whereas the conception of the absolute truth indicates the summum bonum, or the ultimate source of all energies. So that's the difference Prabhupada is clearly giving, and that's what is the essence of this verse, is that we should not try to understand God, because the conception of God, as I mentioned earlier and Prabhupada is mentioning here, from an English terminology, the conception of God means that the controller of this creation, the creator, the maintainer, and the stuff. But then what Krishna is mentioning, he's talking about the absolute truth. As Prabhupada is saying, absolute truth indicates the summum bonum, or the ultimate source of all energies. Okay, so that's the difference here, right? So conception of God is more about grandeur, it's awe and reverence, right? Creation, destruction. But in that concept of God, the sweetness, the intimate reciprocal relationship is not there, it's missing. So God realization is in many religions, in many beliefs, many faiths. But absolute truth realization is not there. Okay. And one way to so the absolute truth is not. That's why many faiths people, when they philosophically, we all are theists. They believe in God. But the moment you go in depth about God, okay, who's God, where does he live, how does he work, what are his pastimes, then those people are those people who are believe in those faiths, they cannot conceptualize that idea. So psychologically, they become atheists. So philosophically theists, but psychologically atheists. That's the problem with all the other practices. God realization is there in every religion, no doubt about that. But nobody explains the absolute truth realization as well as Bhakti Yoga teaches us. All the other religions, what they say is God is to be served. The God as a concept needs to be discussed, but not served. As I mentioned, there is a sense of awe and reverence, that's all. Right? Therefore, it is incomplete. So Bhagavad Gita gives us this preliminary knowledge about that aspect of the absolute truth. Then Srimad Bhagavatam, it talks of the nature of God, nature of devotees and the relationship, and then we go to the next level. Chaitanya Charitamrita, which Prabhupada said is the PhD, where how do devotees interact with each other? So that is how we know the nature of transcendence. That's how we understand what this transcendental nature is, what Krishna is talking about. That is why Prabhupada, in the first chapter, first verse of Bhagavad Gita says, we should read Bhagavad Gita scrutinizingly. Bhagavad Gita has everything that we need to know about Jagat, Jiva, and Jagdish, about the Lord, about the living entity, and about this creation. Okay. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, and so that awe and reverence is not enough. We should also be attracted to the pastimes of the Lord. Krishna. That is why Prabhupada always stressed upon the Krishna. There was a reason why Prabhupada wanted to write to give us a summary of the 10th canto before he completed the whole Bhagavata. Because he thought that this is the most valuable thing, because it has the stories of Krishna that will attract us to Krishna. We will not just be in awe and reverence of Krishna and say from God, okay, my God, okay, this is God, this is the concept of God, but there is no concept of serving God. Only in Bhakti Yoga does this concept come in it fructifies, it's full, it's complete. That is why this process is complete. That is why this is the most satisfying process. There are many stories, right? There is this, if you have ever been to the Rajbhog time when Krishna is offered the food in the during lunch, that's 12 o'clock. There's a kirtan, there's a song that is played from Bhakti Vinod Thakur. It's Bhaja Bhakta Vatsala Shri Gaura Hari. So in that song, there's a story about, there's a character, one of Krishna's friend, his name is Madhu Mangal. Right? I'm just giving an example of how stories how attractive these stories are. Right? And when you think of them, when you meditate upon them, that's where your heart opens up, and that attraction, the concept of attraction comes into the picture. Right? We become in love with Krishna. Right? So there's Madhu Mangal, and Madhu Mangal is very fond of eating laddus. That's his favorite food. And there's this in that song, there's a quote that Bhakti Vinod Thakur makes, and Chale bale laddu khaye Shri Madhu Mangal. So he's saying that Madhu Mangal wants to eat laddus by chal or bal, either way. He'll either steal it from somebody or he will trick somebody. He's so fond of laddus. Once Radharani and gopis, they were going to pray to the sun god, and they wanted a priest to do some puja. So Madhu Mangal becomes a priest, just having fun, and he goes and has fun with the gopis, and he says that my dakshina will only be in laddus. That's all. So the gopis said okay, and then they give him a lot of these laddus once the puja is over, and he takes his cloth and then he puts the laddus and packs it, and then he's going towards back home, and there Krishna and his friends are playing, and they see him from far away. Krishna shouts, "Hey Madhu Mangal, come play with us!" And Madhu Mangal now gets scared. He said, "Oh my God, my laddus are going to be taken away," and he starts walking backwards. And now Krishna is thinking, why isn't he coming towards us? And Krishna and his friends are walking towards Madhu Mangal, and Madhu Mangal is walking backwards. And there Madhu Mangal says, "Oh, I have something to do. I'm going back. I'll be back here soon." But then they catch up to him, and they they all eat up his laddus. They eat up all his laddus. And then some of that, some little bit of it, the broken laddu here and there's left, and they just offer that to Madhu Mangal. And he starts crying. So I'm just giving an example. These are the pastimes that attract you to Krishna. And you understand that Krishna is not just a God sitting up on a throne in the clouds up and just telling people, you go to hell, you go to heaven. No, he's not that. He's a loving God. And when we understand that relationship with God, right, then we get to know the transcendental qualities of Krishna. Then we know what is the Janma and Karma of Krishna. When we all will leave our body, there will be a movie played in front of us. You all must have, from womb to tomb. That's the way to look at it. So we played a story. So if you have invested time in hearing Krishna's pastimes, doing kirtan, doing service, all those activities will come in. But if you have just been taught that, oh, God is a concept, it's just you just discuss it as a concept, and there's no service in there involved, there is no sweetness involved, there is no reciprocation, there's no love involved in there, then how are you going to remember God when you're about to leave your body? Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajanti ante kale tam tam evati konteya sadha tad bhava bhavita. Krishna says this in the 8th chapter, 5th verse. We'll read that if we have served Krishna, then taken prasadam, sang kirtan, dance, so forth, that movie will also play in front of our eyes. And thinking of Krishna, when we have made this relationship with Krishna over our life, that we have connected, with his pastimes, and this tiny, very tiny, like a seed, like desire has come into our heart. Oh, wish I could play with Krishna like all the other cowherd boys are playing. Oh, wish I could, be like a gopi in Krishna is having fun with the gopis. Somebody might say, oh, wish I could love Krishna like Mother Yashoda. make yogurt for him, make butter for him. And he would come and, very like a baby, and he'll play with me. When we have those relationships, then that love manifests. And then we know the Janma and Karma of Krishna. Otherwise, we will never know. And then what picture is going to play in front of you when we leave our body? I don't have to tell you. It will not be Krishna. It will be something materialistic, what we have done in this life. And again, we'll get a body accordingly, right? So, all these things when we hear these stories, they make us more and more curious and inquisitive to know about Krishna, right? Kunti says this in her prayers in the first canto, 8th chapter, that Krishna, you're unborn, but still you are born as a son of Devaki. What do you mean by that? So just that inquisitiveness. So she's trying to do that. But in this world, unfortunately, because we are very unlucky, Mahamaya makes us forget Krishna. And we get into an illusion of this world. The devotion decreases in our life. Okay? So, whenever there is an awareness of Krishna's greatness, when we look at Krishna just in awe and reverence, then love cannot flow as forcefully and enthusiastically. Yashoda Maiya can never love Krishna if she knew he was God. So the question would come to, doesn't Yashoda Maiya and gopis know that Krishna is God? They know that. But just like in daytime, when you look up into the sky, you don't see the stars. The stars are there, right? So similarly, Krishna is God in the back of the mind of those Brajavasi. Sometimes it comes out. But then in the spiritual world, the Maya that is decreasing our devotion in this material world, the same Maya in the spiritual world helps the devotees forget Krishna's supreme position. But why does Yog Maya do that in the spiritual world? To increase their devotion and love for Krishna. If Mother Yashoda knows that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, she would never be able to love Krishna, never be able to run after him with a stick. Krishna would have never enjoyed those pastimes. When Mother Yashoda asks Krishna to open his mouth, says that you have eaten dirt, he opens the mouth, and for a second minute, Krishna shows the entire creation in him. And for a minute, Yashoda Maiya thinks, looks like my boy is not my son. He's not supreme. And she suddenly starts to get into that mode of awe and reverence. And Krishna again brings her back into Yog Maya. And she just dismisses it. Or what, I don't know, whatever it is. He's my boy. He's my child. So that Krishna likes that spontaneous love, which is not inhibited by the fact of his divinity and supremacy. So that's the way to understand his Janma Karma Chame Divyam transcendental. I'll take a pause here. This is a very, very important concept, which, as I mentioned, is nowhere anywhere in the world except being taught to us in Krishna consciousness by the mercy of Prabhupada, by the mercy of Acharyas, that we can have a loving relationship with Krishna, and it makes it very easy for us. The whole process becomes easy to practice and easy to follow. Okay? So without Krishna Tattva, without understanding this concept of love and reciprocation, these pastimes might sound amusing to us. But when we understand them with Krishna Tattva in there, when we understand this concept of sweetness and love and reciprocation, then those very same leelas become amazing for us. So Krishna creates all this to enjoy reciprocation of love from his devotees. And whoever understands that, he goes back home, back to Godhead, he or she goes back home, back to Godhead, and never comes back to this world. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yoveti tattvataha. Tyaktva deham, giving up this body, punar janma naiti mameti so Arjuna, never comes back. That's the essence of this verse. Yes, any thoughts, any comments, any questions on the Tattvata concept?
So Prabhuji, quick question. Sometimes it feels like these intricate, feelings of enjoyment, right? are always there. I mean, and sometimes over the years we have suppressed them, when we are growing up and, facing the material world more and more. Because, when you just said the laddu pastime, right? Of, this playful activities, we either desire to do it either in our daydreaming or, when we were kids or something, but little bit we might we may have forgotten certain feelings that we might enjoy also, or we might think they are very silly, only kids do that kind of, so one question is, so is it's all present in the human being. It's just a matter of clearing the dust and evoking them, making room for them, number one. That's the only question I have.
That's correct. Yes, you perfectly summed it up. It's just that we have to uncover it. And uncover also, as we all know, as you mentioned, we all have these tendencies in our heart. But then we have been placing them at wrong place, in wrong environments, or wrong, I would say, wrong places, right? So yeah, we have been putting it in the wrong places. We should have put it in the right place. Then we would be able to fully manifest in that. Manifest. Otherwise, it will be just half-baked. Right? You might have go out and see. Recently, I heard a class in there. The speaker was mentioning that how sometimes you go out and you see a graffiti saying that, oh, it's M plus M forever. They make a heart around it and say, okay, fine, we will be love. And that pretty soon that love just breaks apart. People fall out of love also, right? So the concept of love is eternal, right? It's not wrong, but then where are we putting that love is mistaken, right? So that's the essence. That yes, so all these things, yes, you have a feeling in your heart, but we have been putting them in the wrong place, and we have been getting our fingers burned. And that is why we always close up our heart. My heart becomes hard. I tried to give my love to somebody and there was no reciprocation. Okay. And somebody, I became vulnerable in front of somebody, and that person misused me, mistreated me, right? So because of that, our heart becomes hard, and we really have a tough time opening it up when Krishna wants us to open it up for him. We have a very hard time to open it up. All those wounds that have been given to us by living entities in this world, it becomes very, very hard for us to open our hearts back to Krishna.
But Prabhuji,
it takes time. Yes, it takes time.
Prabhuji, the fear in opening it up is because you're living in this world, the fear of opening it up is you cannot suddenly close when you go back to the world. And when you go back to the world with that kind of exposed heart, people will crush you, is the fear.
Yes, and that's an appropriate fear. But what you have to understand is that once you understand this whole world as Krishna's, and every living entity having a relationship with Krishna, the reason that I'm still scared of taking my open heart out in the open, in the world, is because there is still something that I am expecting, right? Then the problem will never go away. If there is something that I desire in my heart, oh, I need something from this other person, then only the other person can hurt you. But if you have made a very strong relationship with Krishna, and then you are going out into this world and trying to engage in this world, then whatever may happen, you will never be hurt. You'll never feel cheated, because you're seeing everything in relationship with Krishna. And that's a level that doesn't come easily. I'm not going to say that. It takes time. Acharyas mentioned that it takes time, slow and steady bhakti process, but it eventually comes. Then you see everybody in relationship to Krishna, just like your child, right? You have children at home. Sometimes they might come and say to you, like, I know many kids, teenagers growing up, they just say that, I don't like you. Get out of here. Leave me. Somebody I was talking to Akshana Mataji yesterday, and she told me, sometimes kids say that, and it hurts you. But then it doesn't hurt you so much that, you become dejected and just throw them out of their lives. No, because they are children. You have a relationship which is much above and beyond what they are saying to you. Similarly, with this entire creation, if you can make that sort of a relationship, then whatever this world says to you or does to you will never hurt you, because you have a completely different view of that relationship.
Got it, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
There's a lot of philosophy here, but I can assure you that it surely manifests itself. That happens. But that it takes time. And you have to go through a lot. Krishna, just like a ironsmith, you might have seen how they keep beating the iron to put it into a specific shape. When you open your heart to Krishna, Krishna is going to push you through a lot. He is going to keep beating you because he wants you to come into a shape, because you have voluntarily said that, Krishna, I want to have a relationship. But a time will come when you take that shape, that nothing will then there will be no more beatings. So similarly, nothing will be there to hurt you anymore. But you have to go through that. There's no way out of it. We all have to go through it.
No, makes sense, Prabhuji. I mean, even if an outer skin layer is being peeled off, there is so much pain. So, I mean, I can only imagine if the inner layers are going to be peeled off one by one, it's going to be excruciating.
That is why I was mentioning that when you look at these acharyas, that's another purpose. All these acharyas, they are like, they serve as bridges for us, because we are able to understand Krishna through these acharyas. I mentioned the last time, humility. You listen to what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in his Gopinath prayers. My God, you will be so humble. You'll just start feeling that, my God, he's a pure devotee and he's saying this. Where do I stand? Similarly, when you see, I mentioned about that another Sharanagati poem that Avashya Rakshibe Krishna Vishwasa Palan. A pure devotee has 100% faith that Krishna is going to protect. Just imagine, where does this faith, when that kind of faith comes, how can you have fear in your heart? You'll never have fear in your heart.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
You're welcome. Anything else? All we need to do, and I'll just kind of elaborate upon it, this will come in the 10th, the next verse also, is we have to keep taking these small decisions in our life, right? We keep on taking these decisions according to what Krishna is teaching us. Okay? And then, as I was mentioning, when the iron is being beaten by an ironsmith, it starts taking shape. And then when the shape starts forming, the ironsmith starts to, the blows are not that hard, and the numbers also decreases. So we get more and more freedom in this world to act according to the scriptures. We keep on making good decisions, right? And in a mode of surrender. Right? Srila Prabhupada surrendered again and again. He kept surrendering every other time. That's what kept him going. Right? So that's the way to just live this world. And that's why in the initial phases, we are doing this Vidhi Bhakti. Vidhi is we are doing a proper Bhakti process. We are following some steps which have been given to us. Why? Because I still don't have bhava. I don't have love for Krishna in my heart yet. That is why we read in the 2nd chapter, Krishna says, regulate your senses. We talked about lust in the 3rd chapter, right? And there are some very practical things we can do to regulate our senses, right? For example, throughout scriptures, acharyas have mentioned is that we should very carefully measure our devotional practices, what we are doing. That is why, Prabhupada, we have those beads on our bead bag so that we count them, right? If we are not measuring, then we are not even in the game. That is why that's one important aspect. Eat a balanced diet. You wake up on time. In the morning, you have a powerful spiritual experience. So we have to follow this Vidhi Bhakti to come to a point where we have Bhava Bhakti, we have love for Krishna. Right? And when we keep following this process of Bhakti, then we will get the facility for everything in our lives. And that's the amazing part. Right? We'll start seeing Krishna's hand in everything we do. And then our faith will just skyrocket, it'll just go up. And then whatever this world says, nothing is going to hurt me, nothing is going to scare me. I will open up my heart and let people come and hurt me. Who cares? I'm in love with Krishna. I have a relationship with Krishna. And he's the one protecting me. So anything or anybody they might do, it will not hurt you anymore. All you have to do is just keep showing up in your practices every day. And just keep going. That's how we become strong in Krishna consciousness. As simple as that. Right? Even if you feel inadequate, if you feel that, oh my God, I'm not good enough, you just keep following Krishna's instructions. Right? Take responsibility for your life and about your vows, about spreading this process, and then you just keep getting stronger and stronger in the life. Right? I'll just give one more analogy and then I'll stop and go to the next verse. some of you might see the game, right? Football, American football. Teams play with each other. They go to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl is the final of the game. The team that wins the Super Bowl, they get these diamond rings, diamond-studded rings. Each ring is around $40,000. It's a pretty big ring. The best part is that even the player who's just on the team, but he doesn't play on the ground, gets a ring. So the analogy that I'm trying to give is that just by being in the game, you become entitled to go back home, back to Godhead. If you just keep showing up for the process day after day, year after year, despite anything that's going on in your life, Krishna becomes happy and you become entitled to go back home, back to Godhead. You just have to run the clock out, get the ring, go back home, back to Godhead. Brahma says that in the 10th canto, Tatya anukampam susamikshamano bhunjani vattakritam vipa. That all you have to do is just keep going through whatever is you're being put through. Just tolerate it and do your bhakti. And then you will become a rightful heir to the kingdom of God. That's the essence, right? Just keep going. Don't give that up. Things will come, things will go, but don't give up the process. And then you will see the benefit. Sometimes the benefit doesn't come in this life. It comes in when we are about to leave this body, the benefit surely comes. But okay, I'll take a pause. That was too much speaking for me. Anything anybody had on their mind? Okay, so let's get on to the 10th verse. This is a very important verse. If you didn't understand it, you can.
Prabhuji beautifully explained this Vidhi Bhakti and Bhav Bhakti. But Prabhuji, Vidhi Bhakti is also not easy. Like, it's like, even though it's like every day getting up at 3:30, trying to cover up everything before you go for work, that is also not Vidhi Bhakti, even though I know it's like doing this, following the process, so that ultimately you achieve that ultimate goal of Bhav Bhakti, the ultimate love, unalloyed, unmotivated love for Lord Krishna. But to go to that process, we have to follow this chain, like we mentioned, right? Vidhi Bhakti. That is also not easy, Prabhuji. Like doing a very sincere chanting where you start getting the rasa. That is not easy. Getting up early, taking a fixed time that 100% I have to read these many pages. So all these, in this materialistic world, some deviations happen whether you want it or not. You cannot. So even doing this Vidhi Bhakti to get to that ultimate aim of Bhav Bhakti sometimes is difficult.
Yes, nobody said it's going to be easy. And it's not easy.
It's the ultimate, but Vidhi Bhakti itself is
it is tough. But one thing to understand also is that I have also made it tough for myself. Right? It's not just that Krishna has made it tough. No, Krishna has made it very simple. But then the tough thing comes up when I make it. Am I able to give up envy? No. Envy is sitting right so deep stuck in my heart. Krishna says that, vitraga bhaya krodha manmaya mam upashrita. Right? So just give up. What? I think it's the next verse I just quoted. You give up with raga, bhaya, and krodha. Give those up. Right there. I'm sitting right in your heart. But can I give those up? No. Why? Why can't I give those up? Because I have been dealing with them for such a long time. I understand your point. It's hard. But you also have to take some responsibility for it. That I have made it hard for myself. It's not Krishna who's making it hard for me. So what I'm trying to come to a point is there is a sense of responsibility in bhakti also. Don't always put the onus on Krishna, that Krishna has to reveal himself to me. Krishna is the one who has to make a relationship with me. No, you also have an equal amount of responsibility. Is bringing kids out into this world an easy thing? Everybody does it. India's population is 1.3 billion people. If it's a tough thing, right? Having a child is a tough thing. Bringing up a child is a tough thing. And not just that, taking care of them for lifetime, for the whole life, you will grow old, they will grow old, but you'll never forget about them to take care. I call my dad up, still he asks me, are you okay? Have you eaten your food? This and that. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. But still we do it. It's just a change in our attitude that needs to happen. But I agree with you, it's hard. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not denouncing what you're saying. But I'm just trying to also add that it's a sense of responsibility that we have to take for our lives, for our vows, for our life. If we want to get strong at something, we have to take some resistance. Otherwise, you can hang back forever and never get in. Right? You can just float through this life for entire lifetime after lifetime. Until you don't take resistance, nothing is going to happen. You have to take resistance. Right? Then you will start growing. And then things will become easy. One good decision after the other, however tiny it may be. One good decision after another. One more day waking up at 3:30 in the morning doing your rounds. One more day, and just keep doing it. And then within a short span of time, your life would have passed. You would have done your bhakti, and then you go back home.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
I'm not sure if I confuse you all further, or if it makes sense, but I'm just sharing whatever little realizations I have, whatever I've got.
Nitai Gauranga.
Nitai Gauranga.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu, I can hear you.
So let's just say I just walk into the picture, or let's say I take the position of Arjuna, and I have a conversation with Krishna. This conversation takes place, and Krishna is guiding me. I'm accepting this. I come to this realization, well, if I approach this absolute truth, I don't have to go through all these nightmares anymore. The situations, he says, it's this, everything I see is, I'm not pleased with, or there's some frustration. I've finally come in my life to a point of, I'm frustrated. So, and I get Krishna with this conversation. So with this conversation, is this sufficient for me to go back home? Because I'm not getting much reference to the pastimes of Vrindavan here. I'm not getting some of the other comprehensive things that Srila Prabhupada has given us, but this book, this conversation, I mean, this is it's just a beautiful guidance and the exposing of Krishna so that I can have something to grab onto. But is this sufficient for me to come to that last instruction? Just that when I know you're together and that's all there is for me is you, Krishna, that's all I want. Or is there, what is this sufficient for me to be complete, that I can be absorbed to Krishna at the last moments from this conversation?
Well, these conversations, so the way bhakti, and you know it better than me, the way bhakti evolves, and it's evolving in my life, I see it is, there's a sense of childlike curiosity that comes into our lives. Oh, I want to know more. I want to know more. And this doesn't demotivate me. It kind of inspires me. But then where does that motivation, that inspiration coming from? When we read the Bhagavad Gita sincerely, for example, this verse we read, okay, what does Krishna mean by Janma Karma? Let me know about his Janma and Karma. So you're just expanding upon this philosophy. But this is the basis. This is the foundation of all the, this is the science of consciousness that Krishna has packed up in the Bhagavad Gita for us. But yes, Prabhupada has expanded upon it. There are other books, but the basis is the Bhagavad Gita, right? Is that what you were asking, Prabhu? That can
well,
we just...
yeah, but it's not really fair for us to maybe speak like this, because we've gotten so much more nectar to embellish what Krishna's doing here.
Yeah.
This Bhagavad Gita means more to me now studying it than it did when I first got into it.
Yeah.
Because Krishna accentuates and he illuminates certain pillars that will give us more strength in our activities of a jiva, of one that's linking, like you say, the clearing stage. This Bhagavad Gita, after 50 years for me, this is more illuminating and sweet and dear to me. I've always been in a simple way. Whenever I chant, I always just see Krishna as my hero and the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita. This is just how I always saw him. But now I'm just seeing just how beautifully complete and comprehensive Krishna is making this arrangement for Arjuna. And I was thinking to myself, is this sufficient? But it's not fair, because Prabhupada's given me so much other things to embellish this conversation. So just asking you a question, I guess I got the answer,
Yeah, another thing I want to just add on there, Prabhu, is that our confidence in bhakti is developed from our experience, from our realizations. Personal realization is the ultimate evidence. You can corroborate whatever is given in the scriptures, but you have to see it for yourself. You have to go back to the basics, right? As you're saying, really do good rounds, read the Bhagavad Gita, revisit the state that brought me to Krishna consciousness. Those personal realizations are the ones that will establish your faith, your confidence in bhakti. Yes, and Bhagavad Gita by itself can help you do that. But I agree with you. I completely agree with you. Prabhupada has given us so much more, and that is the oceanic intelligence of Prabhupada. That's the brilliance of Prabhupada, that he has made it so easy for us. And there are billions of people who have just been banging their heads on Bhagavad Gita and nobody has become a devotee to date. It's the reason why, because Prabhupada gave us the essence in a very easy form to follow. So I agree with you. But what I just wanted to add to it was that my personal realization is what is the ultimate evidence to establish me in bhakti, which nobody else can give me. I have to, by my efforts, which I just mentioned, you just keep going again and again, never giving it up, right? Not fading away. Just keep coming back to the basics, being a neophyte each day, right? And then that confidence comes, and then everything manifests. Then things can just unpack them up by themselves, as Prabhupada has done it for us. But it all begins with my confidence. It all begins from my sincerity in devotional service, and obviously mercy of devotees. Without saying that goes without.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome, Prabhu. Okay, we are at 8:31. One thing before I end, I just wanted to add, we have been discussing so much here about many things, Shalini Mataji was saying that it's hard. We always need help. It's very hard. We cannot do it by ourselves. That's where devotees come into picture. That's where mentors come into picture. That's where guru comes into picture. You need to hold somebody's hand. A child cannot go out into the wilderness by himself. But if his father is with him, holding his hand, the child can go wherever he or she wants to go. So we need those. We need that support. But yes, it's embellished from our personal realizations. But then yes, we need guru, the most important aspect. Without that guru, we can keep speculating for a long time, but never be able to reach the end. Thank you very much. Anything else before we wrap up? Last minute.
Just quick comment, Prabhuji. I mean, this thought of giving up everything, and after giving up everything, all material desires, also giving up, even in that stage, giving up the results of whatever pious activity that